I'd like to jump over to YouTube. I mentioned to you beforehand, I put up a community post on YouTube asking for some questions for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like we've got over 100 of them, so we won't get through all of them, but I'll give you a couple of the ones that I had the most thumbs up. So the first one we have is from a friend of mine, Jason, who runs a podcast and YouTube channel called After Dinner Investor. So he runs his business in the daytime and invests in the evening, hence the After Dinner Investor name. And he's asking, what's the largest position you've ever taken in one stock in terms of allocation percentage? Have you ever made a 50% bet or anything like that? Thanks.
Yeah, I have never made a 50% bet. And here's where you really have to be careful if you're kind of asking many people this question, is that, it's easy enough for me to open up a brokerage account, put $1,000 in it, and then put $750 into one stock and say, oh, I've had a 75% allocation. Yeah. What you really want to know is what percentage of your net worth have you put into it? And, is this, does the person have net worth in the first place? Because if you have zero net worth and you're just taking a flyer and it doesn't matter. But if you, so the first thing to say is that Aquamarine Fund is 100%, or effectively, now I've taken some money out to buy a couple of homes, but it's the vast majority of my net worth. I don't have other portfolios, positions, anything like that. So just be careful when you ask that question to people, what they're referring to. And what I would also tell you is that many people, I think, will not answer honestly, or they genuinely have not done the accounting properly in their head. So they may not be intentionally misleading you, but they just haven't thought it through. And, compartmentalized financial thinking is a very, very real thing. People think in terms of, so just be really careful when you hear people say that. So having said all of that and given you as an introduction, in the one I have a Charles Schwab portfolio that has a minuscule proportion of my net worth. And in that Charles Schwab portfolio, I have about 100 stocks that I buy one or two shares of in order to receive the annual reports like I just showed you. So why did this come through my door? Because I bought a couple of shares of Qualcomm and it comes through my door. Why do I tell you that? Because it's another part, just referencing back to the previous question, it's another part of that creating loops, that kind of where things come back to you so that you can reevaluate and remember. So Qualcomm, once a year, I'm going to be reminded that Qualcomm's a company that I could invest in if I wanted to. So, but coming back to the question, never invested 50%. I do believe that in Horsehead, which was a company that went bankrupt, I had 10%. And subsequent to Horsehead, I would never invest at initial cost more than 5% of my fund into a position. And I consciously know that that is going to reduce my returns, and that's just fine, because what I'm into is longevity. I'm into staying in the game and making sure I can stay in the game, and that requires me to manage my own psychology, but also to manage the psychology of my investors. And so that is a very comfortable place for me. And I would not do 10% again. And I've had a number of times now when I've invested in something that's gone down 50% and it hasn't bothered me in the slightest. And, I just keep track of, I might add to it, but it is a very dangerous place when you've made something 5, 6, 7, 10% and it's declining. And then you want to add more and suddenly you've poured half your portfolio into one stock and maybe your judgment was wrong. So, keeping that kind of mental balance and finding ways to keep your mental balance. And it's kind of a visual way of thinking about it, Tom, for me, that somehow works. I don't know why, is that when the position is kind of like up to 5%, kind of a 1% position I feel like is down below me in size. Then a 5% position is sort of coming up to my waist, so to speak. And then a 10% is above my head. And I don't want positions above my head. I want them kind of down there. When I put 1 or 2% of the portfolio into Alibaba and it goes down 50%, I am just not bothered. And I know that I ought not to be bothered if I'd allocated 20% of my portfolio to it and it went down by 50%, but it would bother me. And so that's me managing my own psychology. And I think that This feeling of jumping off a cliff without really knowing where it'll end is never a good thing, I think. So, you don't jump off cliffs. We carefully walk down, picking a path, finding a way to go. And if there's I think that if somebody's saying, "Oh, you're a scaredy cat and you don't have big balls and you're not swinging for the fences when you ought to swing for the fences," that's kind of a voice that one should probably ignore, I think. You know, just focus on, imagine you're walking down a cliff. You don't want to jump and hope it's okay on the other side. Either you don't walk down the cliff, you certainly don't jump, or you wait until you find a path, and you find a path that's safe, and then you take that path. And most of the time, we're not going to find anything to do, And one other thing that I would tell you, part of, again, it goes back to a previous question of yours. Why do I find it easy? I don't know if I find it easy, but why am I doing nothing? Is that I think I have a pretty good fortress, a fortress that's going to carry me through whatever this time is in the markets, and will get me to the other side okay. And I like my fortress, and I know it well, and so kind of I don't want to switch fortresses too often. And I like the fortresses I've got, So it would have to be really, 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 really good.
If you enjoyed this clip, check out the full episode here and subscribe here. Thanks for watching.